Howdy folks, welcome back. It is really good to have you. Today we are talking about your matching team. This episode is all about how to get your matching team together. Importantly, what is your matching team? Why having a matching team is so powerful and can be very effective in actually finding someone, but also helping you prepare well for the matching and blessing. And also going to give you some tips right here about what to do with your matching team in order to ensure the best possible outcomes for your matching and blessing process. Again, we at the BFM have been doing matching supporting for many years. I personally have been doing matching supporting for over a decade now. So we've seen a lot of experiences, we've seen a lot of victories, we've seen a lot of failures and pitfalls that people fall into. And the purpose of this episode is really to give you guys some encouragement and wherever you are right now with your matching process, whether you're really early and you're just trying to figure out which step to go into, which direction to go into, and you don't really know your matching team or have a plan, or if you're very seasoned and experienced and maybe you've been through some matching processes and maybe you're hitting a little bit of a roadblock in terms of finding someone, I think the content I'm going to be sharing here is going to be really valuable for you. Before we get started, I want to encourage you guys, wherever you are listening to this episode, whether it's on YouTube or on the podcast, Spotify, wherever this podcast is everywhere right now. So I encourage you to follow or subscribe, because we are posting content just like this for you guys, because we care about you, we love you, and we're just trying to be as helpful and transparent and effective and motivating as possible. And that's really our mission here. So I really care about you, and I hope that you can follow wherever you're listening to this. All right, so let's talk about what your matching team is. Your matching team essentially is the people in your life that you want to bring with you in your matching process and your blessing journey. It's the people that are closest to you. It's the people that you want to be on your side of the court. It's the people that you want to have on your team. It's the people that are going to help guide you and encourage you and help you in this process of not only preparing for the matching blessing, but how finding somebody, and also helping you, if you're thinking long term, helping you develop a blessing, a successful marriage and blessing. It could be your parents. Ideally, it's your parents. It could be a matching supporter. It could be a sibling that you have. Everyone is in a different situation. So it's difficult in some cases, maybe you don't have a parent that is involved in your matching process, or you're a first generation, right? Or you, and many different situations could be the case. But regardless, it's the people who are closest to you that you want to bring with you. If you're in a situation where you really don't feel like you know who's on your team, or you don't feel like there's any sense of unity between you and your parents or within your family, that's when a matching supporter can be very valuable. A matching supporter can be a very close individual that supports you through the journey, has experience in finding people, knows people. Importantly, they know who's out there and how to find people. And also maybe a matching supporter can be valuable because it's a little bit more of like a third party perspective on your situation, right? Maybe if your family is your only source of support in your system, like your parents and your sibling, that's fine. That's great. That's wonderful. But at the same time, maybe there are some things that you're not seeing because you're kind of too close to home, and maybe there's another perspective. And also, maybe a matching supporter can be helpful because the pool of opportunity is more open because they know people as well. So that's what your matching team is. Now, before we get into how to assemble your matching team and how to improve and all these points that I'm going to be touching today, I want to talk about why this is really critical. And I always try to peel back the layers of why we do stuff. It's not enough. I know nowadays it's not enough to just say, guys, you need to do this. You need to do X, Y, and Z. And if you do that, trust us. We promise it's going to be worth it. It's not enough. So I like to explain why. Now, there are many good reasons to have people on your team when you're finding an eternal partner. If you think about it logically, one of the main reasons that having a team of people is important is because it very quickly opens up your pool of your network of people that you know in your life, right? The more people that you have on your team, actually, the more people inside your pool of opportunity. I heard at one point, maybe many years ago now, but if you count all the people you know, and then you, I guess, exponentially multiply by all the people that they know, and how many times do you have to do that in order to reach the entire population of the world? At the time I heard this statistic, it was 7 times. If you multiply everybody that you know and everybody that they know and everybody that they know 7 times, you'll reach the entire population of the world. I think that's mind-blowing, and that really blew my mind. So that goes to say that if you have 4 people in your team versus 3 people on your team, that very quickly exponentially grows the amount of people that you have an opportunity to consider as a matching partner. So that's one of the main reasons, right? Having a matching supporter. An example, like if it's just your family, you may know people in your state, you might know people in your area or your community or your church. A matching supporter who is across the globe in Europe, or a matching supporter across the country, knows a different network of people. So it very quickly opens up that opportunity. And also by default, when you do open up your pool of individuals, you also open up the pool, the way for God to work. And this is another really important reason to have more people on your team. You open up the opportunity for God to work through more people. We often think that God is some kind of all-knowing, all-powerful spiritual being that is, sitting on a throne, sitting up in the clouds, and we can only connect with God through deep prayer and meditation and going in nature and sitting under a waterfall and umming all day, right? But the reality is that God is a relationship, and we experience God most through relationships and people and give and take. And that's really the third main benefit of having a team and why it's so important, is that give and take. I have found over and over and over again is one of the most important elements to preparing for matching and blessing, is having people to have give and take with, just to have conversations with, just to be able to talk about stuff that comes up in your matching process. There will be a lot of things that come up in your matching process, and just having people to talk about those things with will very quickly resolve themselves, right? For example, things that come up in a matching process. Maybe you start communicating with someone and you find out there's possibly a red flag, right? There might be something that they made, some mistake they made in the past, or that you made in the past, and it comes up in your conversation. Something regarding sexual integrity, something regarding pornography, something regarding a past relationship, something regarding past addictions or mental health issues, or any sort of things that come up in matching process. It's very easy to think, if we're just by ourselves in a relationship, we can very quickly in our own mind think like, oh, this is not a good idea, this is a red flag, or I shouldn't pursue this, and then we start to kind of play the mind games. But as soon as you talk with somebody about it, have that give and take with somebody, it's like you have a third party perspective. Maybe you have God's perspective, you have a different bird's eye view of the situation, and you kind of let it out into the open. If you've ever had the experience, guys, let me know if this is true, where you are just in a dilemma, like, I don't know if I should do this or do that, or I don't know if I should take this course in college or this course or go in this direction or this one. I don't know. It's like a flip a coin, right, kind of situation. But as soon as you told somebody about it, like you told your parent, and you just said it out loud, it's like it just made sense to you. Like, oh, actually, now that I say it, it makes more sense to go this direction, right? So that's the power of give and take. We know from the divine principle, that everything in the universe is created through give and take action. So if you're trying to create a new relationship, if you're trying to create this blessing, this matching process, it does require give and take action. And give and take aside from just you with yourself, your mind and your body. This is really the power of your team. This is really the power of matching supporters. So I want to encourage you, no matter what you are, even if you're listening to this and you're like, you know what, Benji, sounds great, but me and my parents are on not good terms, and my parents are divorced, and I don't want a matching supporter, and all the things that come up. Guys, I get it. I know, or I have a porn addiction and I can't talk to anybody about it because no one will understand. I get it. I do. So in those situations, you have an opportunity to have give and take about that thing, right? If you have a difficulty in a relationship with a sibling or with a parent, or maybe some trauma in your life, you have an opportunity to talk about that thing and address that. And maybe that's the first thing you need to do. I often say, like, for you, I'm not going to go ahead and tell you like, oh, you need to get matched and blessed right now. That's what you need to do. You're 25 years old already. How come you're not matched? No, I'm not that guy. That's an ineffective way of educating and actually going through the process, because at the end of the day, in most cases, there is something else that you need to work on before you even consider these steps. And that's why we have the 7-stage process that I talked about. This is number 4, by the way, in this process. So the stages before this are critical, like your relationship with God, your relationship with your parents, with the blessing, your relationship with your own sexual integrity, right? Because if you don't have the foundation of spirituality and God and your understanding of why you want to receive the blessing, why you want to go through this matching process, then your relationships, my friend, with your team will suffer. Your relationships will be strained. And I'm going to talk about that now. So we talked about why a matching team is really important. Logically, it makes sense, right? It opens up the opportunities for you to grow, for you to find people and everything. It just makes things a lot more smooth. However, the big caveat here is that it's not always smooth in terms of communications. Almost every family that goes through the matching process, remember this, will at one point have a conflict of understanding, a miscommunication, a conflict of which route to take, which matching website to go on, what kind of partner you're looking for, what kind of deal breakers you have. All kinds of things come up in the matching process when you're communicating, right? So that's why I'm going to talk about the how here. And these steps here are to help kind of alleviate those stresses and the tension and help you have a bigger perspective about your team and more of a mature perspective, as opposed to, oh, my parents don't understand, or my child doesn't understand, they're immature. But putting that aside for just a second, the matching process, I want you to remember this. The matching process is one of the most effective and fastest way to work on your parent-child relationship or relationships with your team, because you're focusing on a specific goal in mind. You're not just saying, I'm not just sitting here telling you guys, you need to work on your relationship with your parents. Invest in your relationship with your parents. It's so important. That's how you experience God. That's all true, right? But that's not really practical. It's not very helpful. What I'm saying is that when you focus your intention together on a common goal, then your relationship will improve. And usually things come up in the relationship. And when they do, it's a sign, it's a hint that there's something at the core of your relationship that needs being addressed. For example, when you start doing your matching plan, which I'll talk about in just a second, you start to unearth certain topics like faith. Like, what do you believe in? What is the blessing to you? And many times, if you're a typical, parent-child, first generation, second generation relationship, for example, many times we have different faith styles. Maybe we have different understandings of the blessing about God. And maybe one party, maybe your parents might be thinking, oh, you have to have this type of understanding of the blessing. You have to do X, Y, and Z, hunduke, morning devotion, etc. And you might have a disagreement, for example. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying there are disagreements generally, right? So this is an opportunity to work on that, that aspect or that disconnect, that dissonance and that misstep that you're not aligning, right? And that's what this whole process is to help you guys get on the same page, literally using the matching plan, right? So I'll go through these in order. Step number 1 is assembling your team, right? This is, of course, the first step is getting your team together, having a conversation, letting them know, hey guys, and gals, we are serious, our family is serious about this matching process thing. Regardless of where you are, like you're right now ready to start finding somebody or become a candidate, or if you're really early on and you're kind of just figuring out what this matching blessing thing is, and maybe it's not even for a few years from now, I recommend that you start this sooner than later, assembling your team and just getting this ball rolling and this snowball effect, because chances are there are some things that you're going to be needing to work on in your relationships with people that it's better to address right now than later. Okay, so let's assemble your team, saying, hey, let's have a meeting, and then establish. I really recommend that you establish a routine or a way to communicate. Like, just get a bunch of people inside a group text or a Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp group or wherever, and just say, okay, this is my matching support group, my team. Your job, everyone, is to help me through this matching process, to become the best matching candidate I can, and to help me find the person, right? That's your job. And this is the purpose of this group. And you can just report to them, honestly, like every week, what you're doing. And I'll talk about that in a bit with the check-ins, right? So this is assembling your team and figuring out a routine for how to communicate with them. So number 2 is improve. And what I'm talking about here is especially improving the relationships with these people. Now, your team is, like I mentioned, critical to the health of your future blessing. If you think about it in your relationship with your parents, for example, you could just say, forget my parents. I'm going to find my own spouse. I'm going to get blessed and forget what they say, right? That's possible. I could do that. You're free to do what you want. However, if you think about it in the long term, don't you want to keep that relationship intact? Don't you want to keep your parents, your family, your team, every step of the way all together? If you're thinking about long term, not even super long, even just like few years from now, 3 years, 4, 5 years from now, won't you want to have the support of the people around you when you do get blessed, when you inevitably face difficulties in your blessing? And I promise you will, as I have. Don't be disillusioned in thinking that you will have a perfect relationship every step of the way. Don't be thinking that when you have your children, that it's going to be rainbows and sunshine all the time and you're not going to need the support of your parents, of your family. Don't be thinking that when things get rocky and difficult with your own kids, that you're not going to want to ask your parents for advice. I'm in that situation now, right? So it's important to keep these relationships intact. And I really strongly recommend that you see it as like you're climbing a staircase. And every step of it's like a giant, building, like the Empire State Building for some of us. But you're climbing this staircase, and every step of the way you should be side by side. And many times the communication mishaps happen when one person takes a step ahead or takes a step back, and they don't communicate about it, and they're off pace with each other. And when you're off pace with each other, it doesn't work. This is most of the time that matching processes fail, or not fail, but they don't work out, or there's some dissonance in the relationships. It's because you're not on the same page. You're on the same step. For example, one time I was mentoring someone, and he mentioned to his mom, it's like, "Hey mom, I'm ready to start thinking about matching." And that's all he said. Like I think he was like 18, 19 at the time, pretty young. And he's like, "I'm thinking of start preparing for matching." And the very next week, his mom came to him on the kitchen table and put 20 profiles. This is kind of a humorous example. 20 profiles of matching candidates from websites on the table and said, "Pick one," like this, right? And he was obviously like, "Dude, like, Mom, I was just saying I want to start thinking about matching in Blessing. I want to say I'm ready for this," right? So obviously this is an example of somebody who, a parent-child that had to take a step back. The parents had to take a giant step back to be on the same page. Now that's an example, but this kind of thing happens all the time, and it can actually cause a lot more turmoil than you think. Now I want you to have a certain paradigm shift from this, to view your matching process as one of the single best ways and fastest ways for you to improve relationships in your life. I think that if there's any kind of conflict or dissonance or disagreement in your relationship with your matching team, that's a very good hint that there's something at the root of it that can be addressed, that you can have communication and give and take about. And that's what improving your relationships is all about. I think that one of the most effective ways I've seen people do this, right? For example, someone I was working with, he had really a lot of stress caused by his relationship with his mom in particular. I'm just using moms as examples, but this person was with his mom. And what he did was, and I was also mentoring him with his porn habit, his addiction at the same time. And what happened is that every time we met and we talked every week, he was really inconsistent with his sexual integrity. He was really not doing well. But as soon as he started investing in his relationship, and I said to him, "You know what? I think that your stress in your life is really caused by your relationship with your mom. And I think your matching process and your sexual integrity is not moving forward because of this disconnect you're having with your mom. Not because of your mom, obviously not, but this relationship is not healthy." So he worked on that relationship every week. He like went on walks with her, and he invested in that relationship. And I tell you, and I kid you not, after he started fixing that relationship, healing that relationship, I would say, he started coming to our calls really on top of his life, really stress-free, on top of his sexual integrity. He wasn't struggling with porn anymore because he was addressing that single stress in his life. This is an example of what it takes to really see success in your matching process and receive the blessing. Okay, so the question is, how do you get on the same page? Literally, we have something called the matching plan, which is a work page, and it asks a bunch of questions. We'll put a link down below just so you have easy access. And it's a worksheet that you guys do together. I think this is one of the best things you can do. Given that you do the first things, you build the foundation for this can be an incredibly effective tool. It's not incredibly effective for some people if you haven't done the work on your relationship and you don't see your matching process from the right perspective, like I've been sharing. But when you do this right, you have you and your team do it separately. You kind of discuss it and you try to get on the same page. And if there's any disagreement about how to move forward with the matching process, what kind of spouse are you looking for, and how do you want to go about looking for this spouse? Many times this is exactly where the disagreements and the conflict comes up, and this is the opportunity to address it. So the last tip I want to give to you guys is the check-ins. Now, your check-ins are critical because this is your opportunity to have the give and take. It's your opportunity to have the improvements, to have the conversations about your matching plan and how to move forward. It's your opportunity to share with your team what's been going on recently, how things have progressed, and so that they can give you feedback and have that give and take. So we recommend that you do a regular check-in with your team, either by in person if you can, by Zoom. You can do an email check-in. I do recommend a personal check-in because nothing beats a personal check-in with the people that you love the most. I hope this video is helpful for you guys. My assignment for you today is to contact your team, whoever is on your team right now, whether it's just your parents or matching support or whoever it is. Contact them, let them know that you watched this video and that you subscribed and liked it. And let them know that whatever it made you feel and think, right? And just try to get on the same page. And if there is any dissonance in your relationship or your communication, then try to address that. Because I promise from experience that if you don't address it now, it's going to come up later. And you don't want that to happen. So I'm going to give you access to the full step-by-step seven-stage process video. If you haven't watched that yet, I think you should check it out because there are more important steps, more important things to do before you even get your team together and start this. And I'm going to put that video right over here down in the description so you can check that out. It's really good to have you guys. Do subscribe or follow this podcast wherever you're listening to because we just love you and we want to hang out more. Thanks for watching. Take care.